How to make sure that you're not viewing or evaluating your next new idea through rose-colored glasses. Just because you want to do something does not necessarily mean that the market wants it or that it's a good idea.
Welcome to Women Leaders on the Move, a Her C-Suite radio podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Benamou, and every week I bring you inspirational stories and insights for you to develop what comes next in your career, whether you are leaving corporate, trying to move forward in your executive role in corporations, or you want to land a board role or start a business. We have guests that are here for you to help you accelerate success in all areas of your life. And today's guest is going to do just that. Elaina Zuker has over 20 years of experience as an influence expert, influence speaker, influence trainer, and international best-selling author. She helps individuals and organizations enhance their success with influence, skills, and portable power. She's the founder and CEO of Elaina Zuker Associates, a consulting and training firm that specializes in influence, assertiveness, leadership, creative problem solving, goal setting, and time management. She has trademarked Secrets of Influence, and we will be talking about that, but we are also going to be talking about her own journey of thinking about starting a new product and realizing that it wasn't what she thought it was going to be, and how she made a pivot to success. Let's get started with this conversation now. Elaina, I'm so glad to have this conversation with you on Women Leaders on the Move. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here because we just came up with a couple of topics off the cuff.
Right, off the cuff. So before we get into it, though, I want our audience to know a little bit about you because you've had an incredible career of influence and you've done so many things. Talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to dive right into the topic we were just talking about.
Well, if anybody wants to know about me, I think the easiest thing is go to my profile on LinkedIn. I've worked very hard to shape it. So right now I live in Montreal, my hometown. I've spent most of my career and my life in New York City, which I always say kind of made a man out of me. And before that actually happened, I know this is not very PC, but I went to Northern California where I worked with companies in Silicon Valley. So I've always been in sales. So I'll just kind of cut to the chase. When I was 18, I was knocking on door-to-doors, selling encyclopedias in the freezing cold winters of Montreal. And I went into the advertising world. And of course, I had to hightail it to New York, where the advertising business was. And I was an ad executive for some years and sold multi-million-dollar campaigns. So I have sold millions of dollars of products and services. And so it made sense in a way, after many detours, to teach other people how to influence others. So I won't go into how all this evolved. That's another story for another day. I have a degree in organization development so that I can look at an organization from a 30,000 feet perspective. You could name almost any field, anybody that works in any industry, and chances are I've had a job or a client in that industry. So right now, I do corporate training. I've written several books, about 10 or so. And the best-selling book is called 7 Secrets of Influence. And my course is called Secrets of Influence. It's a trademark course. And now there is an e-learning version of it. So I do speaking for people who want to learn more about influence. I've created my own theory, which is where the psychology degree has helped me. putting together my business and academic experience. And so it's very user-friendly. Let me say that I've spent 25 years to make it simple.
Yes. Well, it's interesting because what we were talking about influence is so important. And for her C-suite, our demographic are women that are senior executive women, and many of whom are at the top end of their career looking to go into their next career. And one of the topics that comes up a lot is, how do I stay relevant? How can I influence? So if someone has exited but wants to stay in corporate and they're in that mid third quarter, let's say that, of their career, what is it that they can do to have that influence? And also, how do you know what is the right thing to do? So I'm going to let you answer that.
I have to say that women who are already at the top of their career, you're already a good influencer, or you wouldn't be where you are. So let's just start with that. However, you may not be aware of the small ingredients that go into your successful influence behavior. And so sometimes I like to call what I do the technology of influence, because I've examined successful influencers and, if you will, deconstructed, broken down, almost like a replay in sports. We are examining what are the small steps or behaviors you already do well and those that you could improve. But we hit on this topic, Natalie, about how do you know when something is the right thing? And, I don't know the answer, and I'll share an experience of what made me question. Because I have been doing influence so many years for people in corporate, and even though my client, let's say I've always been in the B2B space, my clients were the corporations that paid the bills. I taught the course, let's say, to 20 people at a time. So, my students were individual people, always, even if I spoke to a room of 300 people. And so I got the idea because of e-marketing, and I was working with someone who was an e-marketing coach. Gee, now that it's an e-learning, which I intended as a educational, ongoing lifetime learning aid for people that were already in the live class, then the company could buy access to them for the 12 module e-learning. And then they would have that at their convenience anytime they wanted a refresher. So then I got the bright idea, I thought at the time, well, why not try this B2C? Because people always say they want this. So I worked with a lady who is very, very smart coach on e-marketing B2C. And, you see all these, you're always getting these emails about whatever your business is in, be a better entrepreneur in 90 days. I came up with this. At first, I was just selling it to like anybody. And as anyone in marketing knows, and I should have known, anybody is not a demographic.
Yes, I agree with you on that. I understand fully.
Like if it's so broad, then nobody knows that it's for them. So I decided to kind of narrow cast. And what I found was everywhere I went, I was stumbling on coaches. And as I was saying to you, there's just zillions of people out there who are coaches, executive coaches, which I was a little familiar with, but one lady said she was a belonging coach, self-esteem coaches, whatever. But I thought, well, this is such a huge audience, and I know they need influence. They need a lot of other things. And there were all these offerings coming at them about how to be a business person. Because if you were just a social worker, not just, but recently, I mean, and now you want to be a coach, you need to think about yourself as a business. I'm going to come and do your bookkeeping, right? And I'm going to charge you, I don't know, like 10,000 a month. And there were all these different offerings that I thought unrealistic. And I thought, well, I can offer them this modest program, turn discovery calls into paying clients. So here's where we thought, wow, this might be a good salient topic for people. So I did market research with a very smart friend of mine. Her name is Lauren Zaslansky. I'm going to introduce you to her. She's a brilliant corporate refugee who now she was responsible for marketing for Disney and other places. And she held market research groups for me. And I wrote the questions, and indeed it looked like coaches could use this. I was so keen on this idea that my brain was embracing the results of this research in a way that was undeserving. Like it wasn't as positive as I was making it out to be. And that was just me like wanting to do this idea that was so different from my normal everyday that I was welcoming it. So you, Kate, said, wow, so many people who are changing or trying to change what they're doing might be suffering from the same misguidedness. And maybe women in her C-suite have encountered this or might be in the process of it. So that's where we.
What resonated was that as an entrepreneur, we make a lot of pivot. We come in, we try things, and sometimes it feels like spaghetti at the wall. Like you're just, and I
Exactly
understand because
right.
my whole career I was in sales, my whole career like you, and B2B is my jam. And I was B2B for 29 years and very
Wow.
comfortable in that space. I also did door to door, although I did Cutco.
Oh, no, I know them. Okay.
Everyone knows Cutco. When I say it,
Oh, my
you
God.
know the knives. But as an entrepreneur and as a business owner, we're here to serve, right? I think that came from your heart. And I know you. So I know that you were wanting to help these women and these coaches be able to thrive, to be able to accelerate where they are. And sometimes I have found that even when you think like this is going to be the thing, it turns out that's not the thing that they're looking for, right? They're like, yeah, but what I'm doing is over here and I have to focus over here. And you're telling me to go over here to focus in on what is it? What is the thing? And so when we started talking about this, I was sharing that one of our groups is next, which is women who've left their corporate careers and they're in their 3.0 career and trying to figure out that relevancy piece. And that's that influence. And what I loved what you said, and I want to ask you about this is starting from what got you here is what got you here. I think that's the thing that we want to squash away. What got me to where I am today was 29 years of hustle
Exactly.
and of successful sales, right? But I kind of like put it on a shelf and I was like, it's fine. I left that behind and I'm flying to this new green pasture.
But you never leave anything behind
Right, exactly.
because it's always with you wherever
It's
you
always
go.
with you. Yeah. So for the women that are listening, and we have a lot of, and thank you to our listeners, because we have a lot of you listening today. What is it that we can do to embrace that and then kind of move it into that influence piece and have that authority and positive impacts that we are destined to do? Because everyone has that inside us, I think.
So I stood on my own shoulders and my many years of experience, way longer than you, I have to say, Natalie,
Well, I don't know, but anyway, okay.
of selling and influencing in the corporate. And that's how I wrote the copy. And I'm embarrassed to say, I belong to a mastermind group, and many of them are professional copywriters, which I was back in the day, but these are people in the current, and they offer to help me edit my marketing stuff for coaches, and now it's dead. That's also like something to mention, that you have this bright idea and you get some resources to help you, whether it's investing or whatever, or even their professional expertise and advice. And then you say, you know what, I'm not doing this. So sorry, but thanks for your help. And it's very embarrassing. but you get over it. And what we were saying was that how do you pivot when your whole reputation and image and authority is based on what you have done? And so the example for you is it's perfect that you're doing what you're doing now because you have the credibility. Any member that you recruit, you've probably been in something like her situation. For me, the way that I wrote my marketing copy was that actually it was the headline of an ad. Now, for just a small investment, you can get the same influence skills corporate executives have paid me thousands for. So I was taking the credibility of all the years that I've done this for corporate, and here it is for you coaches for only pennies a day or whatever. And so we were talking about how do you not reject your reputation and all your years of doing something valuable, even if you're pivoting, if you're opening a flower shop and you're trying to get investors, you still are demonstrating that you're an entrepreneur and a marketer and you know how to get retail customers. And so I think that's a challenge, and maybe that's a workshop.
Yes. Well, we're going to do a workshop. We're going to do this.
Well, next.
We're going to have this opportunity together. So I'm excited for our members and then also our listeners to be able to come in and meet you about this topic, because I think it is on people's minds. And you said something earlier about you felt very embarrassed. And I feel like being authentic and true to oneself is the best way to say, here's my lived experience. And that makes it so relatable, because so especially entrepreneurs and especially women in their 3.0 and especially people listening, is that we've all been there. We've all been there. And the worst thing to do is to stay, to keep going. You recognize, you know what? This is not going to work. And so I'm going to just, it's okay. I invested this time and I learned, you discovered, and embrace that, celebrate that. How can you take it forward? Well, we're going to do a conversation for our listeners as well. So I think that's one of the beautiful ways that we can pay it forward and have people learn from you, is that that's the lived experience that can share and can really translate.
Awesome. There's an energy, if whether we do this virtually, where other people, you might think they come from left field, which is perfect, because they might be coming from somewhere that you never considered with a different, like, why don't you franchise that? Or other ideas that you may not be thinking about. For example, the flower shop is a good example. So you might be thinking that your dream is to open one in 5 cities or something. And then how am I going to get the money, and who's going to manage all that? And am I going to have to fly around? And then somebody comes up with, well, why don't you franchise it and have people pay you to teach them how to do this, which is basically what I'm doing with influence, looking for influence partners.
If someone is listening to this and they're like, well, I've made this pivot, or I'm thinking about doing this thing, and I want to make it so that I have more influence over the people that learn about me, what's one thing that they could do in that process?
I think the most important thing is be clear about your goals. You can always change them. Write a plan. Actually, the turn of the year is a very good time to be thinking about that. And by the way, I just happen to have written another book. This has been kind of a labor of love. It's about peer mentoring. So many women, especially after a certain level of accomplishment, either don't bother with mentors. You know, when we're starting out or in mid-career, we're always looking for a mentor that's more senior to us. And this theory of mine, which has been very, very practical, is about valuing and not ignoring the power of resources all around you that are at your same level. And so you're good at X and I'm good at Y, and let's help each other instead of envying each other, I might add. So that's a little process that I could do in connection together with a goal setting. But to answer your question, the most important thing is it's not carved in stone because it's just for you anyway. But to just have a goal, a dream, and then maybe other women can chime in and help you tweak it. Because bouncing around in your own brain universe is only going to get you so far. And the genius of other people is that they're not you.
Exactly. Well, I can't wait for our conversation. I'm so glad that you just popped in. This was
I
a
know.
very impromptu, not planned conversation, but it was so good. And I wanted our listeners to know that if you have made something happen this year that didn't go the way you wanted, that's okay, because it gave you learning. And now embrace that, celebrate it, and come to our session, which we are going to do on December 11th. I can't wait for it. So thank you, Elaina, for being on the show. And I can't wait for our program together. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you for spending your time with us today. If you are as excited as I am about discovering how to make a pivot and more, and finding out how to turn your next goal into success, join Elaina and I on December 11th at 12 Central, 1 Eastern. All the information is in the show notes, as well as on LinkedIn. Follow us at Her C-Suite on LinkedIn. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn, Natalie Benamou at LinkedIn. And I would be so honored if you would share this with a friend or colleague. Invite her to join us and accelerate success for 2025. If you found this episode helpful and you would rate and review it, it would help us with others finding us. I would be so grateful. Lastly, we are sponsored by a program inspired by you, our listeners. We launched Women on the Move inside Her C-Suite. We offer bi-monthly office hours with our podcast guests, and the guests are networking and finding success, as well as our listeners and our members, leaders, board members, executives, entrepreneurs. We have a thriving community, and we want you to join us. Check it out at hercsuite.com. You belong here. As always, keep shining your light bright. The world needs you.